Dr. Ernesto, I mean, we have a lot of agreement here. I think maybe some people say it's easy, some people say it's hard.
Just Ernesto. I'm a self-taught scientist. I have a few problems with the theories we're dealing with. One of them is it's probably it's confusing. We have the black swan, or maybe the black elephant in the room, which is Hong Kong. Hong Kong has it's a very dense area of it's absolutely a blue zone for sure, and they have the highest consumption of meat, pork, and all of the other things, fish, and so and the thing after 27 years of research in my lab, self-funded lab, by the way, the thing I regard as most important is not the quality of the calories, but the amount of it. It's just the amount of it. And actually, involuntary calorie restriction explains 97% of the variance of these regional, centenarians. It's just the war of 1919, the First World War, hunger. 1929, the Great Depression, a lot of scarcity. Then the Second World War, and then the rough years of the Iron Curtain, as you call it, of Cold War. So there's a lot of involuntary calorie restriction. And from the models, by the way, a calorie restriction is the unchallenged, most solid, replicable intervention we can do to radically extend the maximum lifespan of virtually every species. And this holds true for, 36 orders of magnitude, from, fruit flies to whales. I don't know who can restrict the diet of a whale, but I mean, Claver's law is so that's one of the problems. I think we're jumping to conclusions, assuming calorie restriction is the most proven way to get to radically extend lifespan. It's tricky with humans or any big animal, because Claver's law dictates the metabolic rate diminishes as a function of body weight. So what we can do to mice in the lab is just amazing, and you cannot replicate that with humans. Like, ¿cuántos de los presentes conocen mi trabajo de alguna manera? Levante la mano. Oh my God, nobody. So that's a problem. You see, that's a problem. That is a problem. Yeah. So gracias igual por la honestidad. So they're being honest. So I think so. To sum it up, the other danger I see is a semantic trap, like Dr. Sinclair mentioned. Is okay. So plant-based. What about the pesticides? So we have a problem, a massive problem, concerning our food source. So it gets, the plot thickens when you consider how poisonous our food has come to be. So I think it requires a lot of joint effort and comparing notes, and maybe not jumping to conclusions. We humans tend to do that, right? We say, okay, I think I got it. Maybe we should slow down a bit and reconsider. Like, I have a lot of experience with the Inuit people. I lived with them. I have a documentary. It's called Cancer and Civilization. This is 12 years ago, and they had no degenerative diseases whatsoever. No cancer, no cardiovascular disease. Their lifespans were short, though, on account of the caloric expenses. Remember the L theory? The higher your metabolic rate, the shorter your lifespan. No es la L que ustedes creen. La ley de la L, ¿se acuerdan de esto? So Elvis Presley, high metabolic rate, short but happy life. And we can do that, and we can do that in the lab. We've done it many times. You can lower the metabolic rate, you can extend the lifespan of the entity. So can we do that? Right. And maybe we can sprinkle a few molecules like niacin or NMN there in the mix. That's what I think. Thank you.
So the environment plays a big role, of course, in these diets and the lifestyles. So we have another question from the festival group. We know that the passage of time in the body's cells wears them out and even mutates until they form the feared tumors. Is aging a factor in acquiring cancer and other diseases, or are we not knowing how to age healthily? So, given the contrarian beliefs, I think, just on this panel, I'd like David to go, and then maybe Dr. Nalini. Do you want to jump to that first?
Thanks, Serena. So I'm not as well equipped to talk about cancer, though we do study it in my lab, in mice, though, not in humans or whales. What we've discovered is that just saying that mutations to the DNA cause cancer is missing a really important component of cancer. I'm not going to disagree with Nobel Prize-winning research that shows that mutations in certain tumor suppressors and oncogenes, as they're called, is a primary cause of cancer. That's a dogma. That's not going away. What I would like to add to the discussion, though, is that we're missing the epigenetic changes in cancer or the body that accelerate the process. I have a theory. I have lots of theories. I give them terrible names. This theory is called the gerontogenesis hypothesis. I need a marketing person. But so gerontogenesis means that as our bodies get older, through epigenetic change, which you now know all about, the body becomes more cancer-like. The body starts to look more cancer-like in its metabolism, especially using the kinds of sugars that cancer cells love typically to eat and metabolize. And so this theory is that, yes, those mutations are important, and the body's changes to the epigenome and metabolism are also making the environment that allows those mutations to thrive, and that if we address both, we'll have an even greater impact. And one of the great things about the research that we've talked about today, both lifestyle and medicines and supplements, is that it can slow that aging process of the epigenome and also slow mutations from occurring. And that's why I think these lifestyles that we've talked about help prevent and even slow and treat cancer cells or cancers when they arise.
Thank you. Ernesto, is aging a factor in acquiring cancer?
It is a contributing factor if you factor in mitochondrial decay. It's been proven for decades now. Otto Warburg did fantastic practical work, experimental work, and you can actually induce in a otherwise normal, healthy tissue, mammalian tissue, you can induce cancer just by lowering the oxygen saturation at the tissue level. This is a mechanistically so elegant, like it's undeniable. And the bulk of my work is cancer, actually metabolic interventions to deal with cancer. For 27 years we've done that, and we've published a number of papers on the subject. We had this poor man's approach to the thing, and based on early observations 20 years ago in the positron emission tomography. It's called the PET scan, right? And so, okay, there's the formal definition in oncology of what a tumor is a concentration, is a highly hypermetabolic node in the body. It's more complicated than that. We have certain amino acids that are critical to survival of the tumors, and they can switch paths if it needs to be. And for decades we've tried to find a primary cause of cancer in the genes. It's been remarkably unhelpful. We have the Human Genome Project, not the Atlas Genome Project failed. But on the other hand, we have solid and cost-effective, non-toxic interventions for treating solid tumors that have proven this is a metabolic phenomenon, right? And we can deal with it metabolically. So that's my take on it. And of course, this observation 3 centuries ago, Gompert's law states that the probability of dying doubles every 8 years. It's actually 8.4 years. So age is a carcinogen on its own. If you consider, all and it is still like that. We're in the 20th century now, and the probability of dying doubles every 8.4 years. And I don't know, Fidelity and all the insurance industry still uses this law. It is a power law. And so, yeah, age needs to be included. I think mechanistically what happens there is a steady decline of respiratory capacity at the cellular level. It's the mitochondrial decay. Mm-hmm. This is an exponential decay. You can prove that through simple means in the lab, like physiologically, consumption of oxygen and some other measurements. That's my take on it.
Thank you. Thank you. So Dan, you're our lifestyle forward sort of expert here. Is aging a factor, or are we just not knowing how to live healthily?
Aging's a factor. I think it's useful to think of cancer not as a noun, but as a verb. One cell goes rogue, and most of the time a youthful immune system takes care of it, but as we get older, our immune system's capacity drops. And we're seeing in the blue zones, Okinawa, where we have good data, Sardinia, where we have good data, they suffer about a quarter to a fifth the rate of breast and prostate cancer, and in all blue zones, a much lower rate of cancers of the GI tract. And, my language is population or epidemiology, so it's not just what they eat, but I want to get to that at the end here. But if you live in a stressful environment, you're creating an environment where your immune system works less efficiently and the chances of cancer catching on goes up. The toxins come from food, but they also come from automobile exhaust, which is associated with lung cancer. It comes from the existential stress of not knowing what you're going to do with your life. So once again, I like people to think of this cluster of interact in mutually supporting lifestyle characteristics that help people avoid diseases. And, just to get back to 2 points the panelists has said, carbohydrates, the worst word in the nutrition dictionary is carbohydrates, because both jelly beans and frijoles or black beans are carbohydrates, but one is the worst thing, one is the best thing. So, I'd like to challenge the industry to come up with a better word than carbohydrates when they associate it with different diseases. But also, for the epidemiology I've seen, the associations between high meat consumption and cancer, certain kinds of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and even type 2 diabetes are indisputable in my mind. In blue zones, they did eat meat. They ate about 10 kilograms of meat per year. In America, we eat about 120 kilograms of meat per year. That's a bathtub of it. As David was pointing out, when we live in our food, body environment of excess, you create this environment for diseases to take off. It is much easier to live in a slightly caloric restricted environment when you're eating beans and grains and greens than it is when you're eating calorically dense meat. And by the way, in Hong Kong, they might be eating a lot of meat today, but if you want to know what a 100-year-old ate to live to be 100, you have to know what she was eating in 1924. Right. And in those years, there wasn't the prosperity they have today. A lot of people go to blue zones today. You go to Sardinia today, and it's like prosciutto and lamb and ham and pork chops, and it's like eating a barbecued petting zoo. But 20 years ago, they were eating fava beans and couscous and greens. So you have to see what what they're eating over time.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you. So this is sort of another two-part question. So if it's possible to stop aging, and science tells us that we live longer every day, why are there no people who are 150-year-olds now? And what social, economic, ethical, and ecological implications would there be if people did live to be more than 150 years old? Ernesto, I'm going to start with you. So
huge problems lay ahead.
Yeah.
So we have a dropping population, birth rates. We do have, and I will much rather Dr. Sinclair take on the Hayflick limit. There's a technical, there's an obstacle, an intrinsic obstacle to maximum lifespan in humans. Leonard Hayflick was a brilliant biologist, and he came up with this realization: we can only replicate ourselves X amount of times, right? Mm-hmm. So it's currently believed it's at 122 years, like it's for Jean Calment, I think it was, the maximum lifespan being different from life expectancy at birth, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there are huge biological problems there. But we're consistently getting there, right? I hear talk about escape velocity, longevity escape velocity. We used to call it actuarial escape velocity. So it's a very appealing concept, right? And we're consistently inching up, but the maximum lifespan of humans remains pretty much the same. Probably even has diminished a little. We have a lot of poor data from, PAMA and just Hunza in Pakistan. We have fuzzy data. If data on people's longevity, if it comes from prior to the Cultural Revolution and some other interventions from the states to, actually qualify the birth rate. So I think we're getting there, and the main problem I see is we're going to outlive our rich net worth. I mean, our how do you say that? ¿Cómo se dice ahorros? Savings. We're going to outlive our savings. Yes. Thank you. So that's a huge problem. We have a shrinking working population. Less and less young people will work, and an increasing aging population. It's going to be a problem.
Yes, thank you. Actually, it's perfect. David, you've published a paper. Maybe you can kind of just focus on the second part, the second question, which is what are the social, economic, ethical, and ecological implications if people did actually live 250?
It's true. We have a declining population and an aging population, but I don't think the solution is to get everyone to be sicker and die sooner. I think it's the opposite, that we need those people who are older to remain in the workforce, or at least be productive members of society, taking care of their grandkids, and not being a burden on the village or on the healthcare system. And it's true that the longer somebody lives, the less burden they are on the economy when they die, and the quicker they die. And so we did the calculations, as Serena mentioned, and it was done with two top economists in London. And we published the calculations that if you could extend the healthy lifespan of Americans by just 1 year, that value would be $83 trillion in the ensuing decades. That's a lot of money. If we could increase healthy lifespan by a whole decade, then that would be $366 trillion. These numbers are massive. They're equivalent to the military budget. And there's no other way that I know of to save that kind of money. And the reason it's so valuable is that it's not just that you're keeping people out of nursing homes and hospitals, but the people who are alive are contributing to the economy. And if they're not home taking care of the family, they're traveling and spending money and doing good things. But you're right about the savings. And I look at the value of a country rather than an individual. And that amount of money savings just in the US would be able to pay for a lot of things, including education, helping solve climate change, and I think helping people with their savings. But I don't think people could retire at 63 or 65 if they could live to 150. That we'd have to change that. But for me, I'd rather have that extra life and work a little longer, and maybe change careers if you don't like what you're doing, if you can. And that's why I talked about having a skill sabbatical, a training period in life, so you can change careers, because it's going to be necessary when, not if, we all live longer. And finally, I don't see any proof that there's a limit to longevity. I see that in history it's been true, but we used to think that going at the speed of a horse was the limit to human speed, but we were just looking at horses. So I think that Hayflick's limit can be overcome. We're doing that in my lab now. And so I'm optimistic that whenever we think there's a barrier to humans, we can overcome them. But you're right, even the 40 years of average to maximum lifespan is a good playing field. It means that if we could move everybody up to the maximum, we'd have an extra 40 years, and that alone would be incredible.
My God. Yeah.
Thank you for those insights. Very positive.
Also have more babies.
Yeah, much. Those were excellent answers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a lot of personalities here. Thank you very much. Está este libro, 32 maneras cómo ganarle al cáncer. That's yours, I think.
Yes.
Y pues está de venta también. Nos vemos a las 4:30 y simplemente quiero mandar un saludo desde aquí. I would like to greet from here to our public that's taking a look at the festival from the United States, New Zealand, Spain, Hungary, Germany, Canada, Argentina, Colombia, Indonesia, France, Chile, Perú, and the United Kingdom. Nos vemos 4:30. Muchas gracias.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Gracias. Gracias.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.